It's really important, and it's time for us to start to call out our romanticization of negative relationship patterns and of old sort of toxic Romeo and Juliet, Hollywood felt or, fed toxicity. So let's talk about some of that, especially within the climate that we're in at the moment. A lot of things coming up around the twin flame conversation, but we're going to go deeper and just talk about this as a whole and how we've been fed this a lot. So welcome. And for those of you guys that don't know us, my name is Dove.
I'm Nicole.
And we are a power couple who has been working for quite a while now to help people to come into their most empowered, sovereign self. We are
truest self, baby.
Teachers and coaches. We work with health, wealth, and love, and also work on these sacred unions, right? And so with everything that's going on these days, and with a lot of the confusion and intensity around, and of course you see in our name the word twin flame, or the term I should say, and this term for us, right, representing something that we've explained in other videos, but it is representing the energy between us. A revolution being our impact together on the world to help you to become your truest and best self. So it's not our exclusive work, but we do work a lot around the concept of relationships. And, with everything that's going on right now and all of the messages you guys have been sending us, it just felt really important for us to talk about, like, okay, listen, guys, it's time. It's not to say that relationships are not going to have toxicity or that dynamics don't have toxicity, but it's time for us, right? We've had plenty of our own. It's time for us to not romanticize it and seek it and hunt it. And you know what? I have to say, fucking justify it. Fucking justify it in the name of twin flame or soulmate or whatever the fuck.
Divine partner.
Whatever the fuck. Fucking justifying it, right? And Spirit was just like, you've really got to make this clear. This is not a sweet topic. It's not.
Girl.
It's we have to stop justifying it and say, what is my fucking work to have a different ability to resonate with a different type of dynamic, to be able to co-create a different type of dynamic, to even desire or receive a different dynamic.
Okay. And so I actually want to say something, because Dove brought up that, we've gone through our own toxicity, and I want to make a distinction, okay, on our relationship and why we stayed together.
Yes.
Okay. It wasn't like, oh, we're just going to have a free for all and abuse each other and stay together and do that. No. From the beginning, when I met this woman, and I had relapsed when I first met her because I was in rehab for about a year. I come out, we were friends for a couple years, and then we hadn't even talked on the phone yet. And it's we get together and she's just like, if you relapse, I'm out. And I did. And then she was like, okay, wait a second. No, I really want to be with you. Now that you've relapsed, you need to go get help. And you know what I did? I went and got help immediately. And then the next time I screwed up, do you know what I did? I got help.
And we haven't stopped.
We haven't stopped. And here's that is the distinction, is that we have been willing to put in the work. Both of us. She put in the work. I put in the work. There was active participating in the greater good of our relationship, in our own lives, for you guys, as we went, on and on and on, and we start to, get so much training and, integrity, ethics, and all of these things that we study, and to be the best version of ourselves for ourselves, to feel, here we go, to feel something different. Mm-hmm. We know pain, we know suffering. We wanted to feel something different. And for many of you, okay, here we go. Your ego mind, okay, toxicity or old patterns or things that you do, right, to your ego mind is safe.
Yeah.
You're going to choose, and you're going to say, why would I think toxicity is safe? Well, because that's what
familiar.
You know. It's familiar.
Right.
The unknown freaks the ego out.
Yes.
When I met this woman and she started loving me, I started to push her away. I was like, what is this? I don't even know. It felt so uncomfortable. We'd have moments of balance and harmony, and I would rock the boat because it felt I would let's just mess it up, I would start things with her, and she's like, you're sabotaging. What the hell is happening? And then I realized, I was like, whoa, I don't know how to let someone love me. I don't even love myself. And for many of you that are in toxic relationships, you don't love yourself. So you're going to settle for somebody else not loving you. Okay? And that's really where that's where it starts. And see, the first time I went away to rehab, I had an eating disorder and I had a drug addiction, many drug addictions. Actually, I was addicted to whatever made me feel nothing, okay? Or to make me feel a lot, right? And I went in and the eating disorder, like, yes, there was mental stuff that happened, but that stuff, it got healed immediately. Like I had little relapses with my bulimia, but for the most part, I was able to see something working through me. The divine was working through me. It wasn't in Nicole's timing, it was in the divine's timing. And the divine healed me of that. And something happened. I'm lovable. When we start healing, we're like, whoa, we see miracles. We're like, I'm lovable. I didn't totally love myself, but I saw love in that. I saw grace in that. I saw mercy in that. And I began to start to open the door to the possibility to love myself. Right. And when I love myself, I can love other people.
And you can receive and see love. See, when we don't feel lovable, and when we have this baggage and this wounding that we're carrying around, like many, many people have, we want to attach to something. In fact, it's the confirmation bias in psychology. A lot of the time we'll attach or attract ourselves to somebody that isn't going to provide that. In fact, they're going to provide unavailability, a lack of, respect, all of these things, because we're getting that like, well, this is my belief, right? And sometimes we want to consciously prove it wrong and say like, well, I'm going to make this person love me. This person, I'll be worthy if this person loves me. Dear one, you're worthy now. You're loved now. You're whole now. You're complete now. And that's your job. That's your work, is to see that. That person is not going to fill that giant hole in your system that only you and your connection to your divine self or the divine is going to fill for you. That is it. It can't be filled by that. And I want to talk about, so how do we get into, why do we love, right? Why do we love this sort of toxic, and I say Romeo and Juliet because like, what a story, but oh my gosh, right? The total toxicity of lack of being able to balance yourself and self-love and like all of these things that are going on in the story. And that, right, we've had that fed to us from fairy tale to Hollywood to, so many different narratives are telling us how we're not complete. And, we have to have this person's approval, all of these different things. It's because every single one of us has a separation wound. The separation wound happens when we're born. It's like we get into our own body and we're separate, or we perceive to be separate. We believe to be separate from the all. We start feeling alone. We start feeling that separation. And then we get confirmations. We have an abandonment or rejection. And then that core wound of abandonment or rejection, that festers. And now, oh my gosh, now we feel a connection to somebody. And it's deep and it's wild. And maybe it's a remembrance, and maybe it's a soul connection. Maybe it's just really, really familiar. Maybe you had a lot of trauma when you were young and that just feels really familiar, right? For some of you guys, light bulbs went off and you had never heard this idea, right? You learned this when you were 2 days old, that truly that, it is familiar for you to be in whatever distorted pattern was most prominent in your life.
Yes.
And that familiarity reads to your system as safe, right? And so those wounds are active and they're trying to fill up. And that's how we're looking for that thing. That's how we're driven for that idea. And I'm going to speak to it in the twin flame context, because this, I think, is where the twin flame context or concept can actually become the most damaging.
Yes.
I will say this as many times as I need to and be as radical to some people as I need to. If an idea is harming you because you can A, not understand it in its purest form, B, it is just like not serving you in that moment for the way that you're digesting it or applying it in your life, put it aside, right? You can navigate your work and do the work without having to attach to an idea. And this is part also why we're going to repeat like what we do and who we are, because we don't want We have so many amazing people that follow us that are like, I'm not on the twin flame journey, right? But they're connected to us. You don't have to be on a twin flame journey or related to a twin flame concept. We are going to serve you because that's not the totality. In fact, not even the primary of what we teach on, right? We live our connection, and that connection breeds the service that we do, which is about you, you know? And so when we have this big giant wound and someone comes along and says, I'm going to plug in the missing piece, it's that person over there, and we're going to plug that person into you and you're going to become whole, we can become desperate.
Yes.
We can become desperate. And it's not just desperate for that person's approval. It's desperate for mom and dad's approval and that bully at school and anyone else that ever hurt you or made you feel small, or you made yourself feel small, and you just want that to be fixed and you want to fix it simply. And I know that this is triggering for some of you.
It is.
I know it's triggering for some of you. I just saw an orb fly by when I said that. Because it's triggering. It's triggering. It's really triggering because we hold these really deep wounds. And there's even been times in our relationships where I've wanted Nicole to fill it. I've wanted another person to fill it. I've wanted a beautiful piece of pie to fill it. You're also a human, right? Man. But I want to speak to the intensity of where we can get into the extreme with it, right? And because there is something beautiful about this unconditional love, sacred, divine union idea that I think is sacred and special. But it's so easy for our wounds to breed distortion.
So I Spirit's wanting me to share something with you, and so it might be for someone. So I'm going to give you an example of how this could play out. So let's say that your father never acknowledged you when you were younger, and you did everything because there was a part of you, right? When we are not acknowledged or loved or touched by our parents, like held, if we don't have like an actual like healthy bonding style, we sometimes can take on these dynamics where our little bodies and our little, child is going, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to get that man's attention. Everything I can to get that man's attention. Yep. I will be the best at school. I will be the best at sports. I'll be the best this. I'll be the best that. I'm going to be a perfectionist. And then you crash a little bit and burn. It's so painful. And then what happens is, let's say you don't get that. Guess what happens? You take that little part, that part of you, that little one, it's in there. And then all of a sudden it looks at the man. If I just get a man or a woman
or a person
to see me. But what happens is you're feeling, this is where it's going to get real good, y'all. You're feeling meaningless and unworthy inside because you're looking outside yourself to fill that piece. And so what you're doing is you're looking for the person, but your insides has an energy. And what you're doing is you're attracting someone that's going to be non-committal and not going to give you that because you don't believe that you actually deserve it. And then you're in hell. You're in suffering. Now, I know that was really hard to hear, but I had to say it because I want you to understand what you're working with. And how tricky and confusing the mind and the subconscious can get. It is taking score constantly. It is constantly programmed. It's doing dynamics that you don't even know that you're doing. And you're looping in it. And some of you are crying right now. And some of you are hurting right now because it just blew up
Right. It's blowing up the distortion. Right? It's calling out the game. It's calling out the things you've been using to cope and figure out how to navigate, and you're feeling unsteady, and that's okay. And it's not to say that the person that your attention is on is not a beloved, right? It might be somebody that you have a good connection with, or it might be your real sacred partner or real connection for you. But it doesn't mean that this doesn't need to be addressed first, right? And it's certainly how we breed the sensationalism and the romanticization around this toxicity, because that'll all build up and then we'll fantasize about somebody, or we'll hold on to beyond the reach and limits of something, and it'll be because of all of that active wounding, and I'm going to go back to something Nicole said at the beginning, which is like, there's a difference between having a relationship and there being dysfunction in the relationship and you both being aware of it and seeking the resolution of it, right? And being able to like have that self edge and the boundary and the self-care and all of that. And actually like being intoxicated by the dysfunction. And I know most of you know what we're talking about, because even if you're not living it right now, this is like a lot of relationships in your teens and early 20s, right? You're like, oh my God, it's like so, and you're crying and it's like crazy and it's all over the place, right? But the truth is like that's a paradigm that we need to move away from. And it's very relevant for us to talk about this right now in this climate with, you know, all the conversations happening about twin flames, with the docu-series, with all of the stuff, because this is why and how this idea can be used as a distortion. It's how and why you will distortedly attach to the idea, you know? And so we need to start to like authentically talk about it in its truest form. So this is just a snapshot on the very, very big subject. We hope this has been helpful for you. We're gonna have a lot more coming to you.
And I do want to say one thing before you end this video, because Spirit is gonna have me say one more thing for the example that I gave. If any of you got really triggered or got upset, or I just want to say, Dove and I are not therapists, we're not doctors, we're coaches. CBT therapy is amazing for that exact like instance or things like that, to take you through. So, you know, just to give that out, just if you are going through something, you want to go a little bit more deeply in what I had just said, that's a great place to start.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We do work with trauma and we do work with a lot of things, but we do it from a different standpoint. And there are absolutely time and places for you to get and utilize some really good therapeutic tools that are out there. So just know that, yeah, if you're triggered and you're like, holy crap, I just got called out, that's great. Celebrate yourself.
Heck
a trigger is a phenomenal thing. You just brought light to it. And you might say, like, what do I do with it now? Well, that's the next step in process, right? And you'll also hear me say this a lot. You might resonate with us and want to work with us. We are not the only way. We are not the only option. Please run far anytime you hear that. So we send you guys so much love, and we will see you real soon.
Bye.